Gary over here, she'll give him the whole bag. I mean, it'll be gone in a split second. She's easy.
We'll adjust his eating later, so you just do whatever you want.
All right. Well, we love this concept, a therapy dog for the court, and we wanted to hear more about this. And, of course, we wanted to, pet, Franklin quite a lot and give him little treats. So, Gia, if you would, why don't you slide up there to the microphone a little bit closer if you can. Tell us about Franklin and his role as a therapy dog.
Sure. Franklin is a 17-week-old puppy. He's a black lab mix, and we got him from the Delaware Humane Society. Okay. And we got him, I started fostering him on December 20th, and he was with me until he was neutered from the Humane Society, and that was January 2nd. That's when we were able to transfer everything over to the juvenile court. He's now owned by the juvenile court. He lives with me, and I am his handler.
I see. Franklin, what'd you think about that neutering thing?
I got him chasing his tail.
Oh, okay. He's a little distracted right now. So Gia, did you adopt Franklin with the idea of him becoming a therapy dog? Was that the whole plan?
To an extent, yes. I mean, yes is the answer to that, but we actually we've been working with Franklin County for over a year because I sat down with the judge and asked him about this idea, and he said, how are you going to do it? And I said, okay, I've got to figure this out. That's a great question. And I had no idea.
That's why he's a judge. He thinks of this stuff, How are you going to do that?
Right. And I had no idea. So I reached out to Franklin County Sheriff's Office, who has an established therapy canine program. And they were a great help in the logistics of it. And we actually had a phone call set up the Wednesday that we found him to get a dog potentially from their shelter because they had a behavioralist. And then my boss, Chief Kara Moore, said, we need one from our county, and look at this dog. And he was just perfect. The stars aligned, and he is the perfect dog.
Oh, that's great to hear.
I got a puppy kiss.
Did you really? Kathy, I know you've got a boogie out here in a couple of minutes. Why don't you pop up here and ask a question or two and tell us about Franklin? You've been spending a little bit of time with the young man there.
Awesome. And I said one of the best things I can see.
Microphone.
Oh, I thought I was close enough. How well animals are good for children in the juvenile system, because when they've lost hope in people and trust and faith in people, they still can have it in pets. And dogs, like this guy, oh my goodness, he melts your heart.
Does he seem to like your treats, your primal treats, the turkey and the liver treats?
He's like, give me one.
His eyes are now dilated and in a gaze.
Do you think he would like
He's
you
going to
without
nap
doggy
the rest of
treats?
the afternoon with all the stuff we're feeding him.
I'm okay with that.
Kathy, from your perspective, tell us about Franklin.
Well, he looks like he's a pure lab.
Is he?
Yeah, it's what he looks like to me. I mean, that's what we were talking about in the hallway. His hair, everything. He's gorgeous, extremely wonderful temperament. Oh, my goodness. I would take him home in a heartbeat.
And Franklin is how old, you said, Gia?
He is 17 weeks.
17 weeks.
Yesterday.
Huh, interesting.
And
He's
he
very
is
well
40
behaved.
pounds. Yes.
Okay, Judge Hemanowski, when Gia came to you and she said, hey, here's an idea, and you, of course, had to do the realism thing and, do a little plotting and planning.
No, I didn't do any of that.
No, you didn't do any of that?
I pretty much said, puppy, sure.
Sure.
No, we had actually talked several years ago about having a therapy dog, not only for us to use at the court, but the prosecutor's office has used him already in doing some witness prep with a juvenile witness. I can see Children's Services using him in circumstances where they've got to meet with kids or they've got kids in difficult positions. We've talked to adult probation, adult court services about the possibility of them using him. So we can see a variety of places where he'll be helpful throughout the county.
And an absolutely gorgeous dog. How much larger is Franklin going to get? Does it stay in this size more or less? Or
The vet said on Friday that he will probably be between 80 and 90 pounds at a healthy weight.
Wow.
That's still, again, a lab weight. That's still healthy.
And where is he at right now?
40.
40. All right. Kathy, can you take care of that with a few more treats? We have 40
he'll
more
be
pounds
50
to
before
go.
he leaves.
He might be about 45 now.
Yeah.
Actually.
Now, what will Franklin do later on today? So you guys leave here and you go to the courthouse? Is that how it works? And
He will nap.
he will nap. Okay.
Yeah. As a puppy, he spends a lot of time
He does.
napping at the moment. But he's going to be very helpful to us as far as I often have to meet with kids in child abuse and neglect cases and interview them, and he's going to be very helpful in that setting. As I said, he's already been useful in witness preparation for trials, so he'll be a busy dog.
Mm-hmm. So you said Franklin County has this program. Any other counties in the area doing so that you're aware of, or I take it this is a trend that's developing?
So we are the first in Ohio that I can find to have a therapy dog in the juvenile probation department. Summit County has a Common Pleas therapy dog, and then Franklin County has theirs through the sheriff's office as well as Columbus City Police.
Yeah,
I'm
Kathy?
just thinking about like in courts or in prison systems, how they train canines and how that helps the prisoners calm down, how much it helps them. So it would work for children and adults so much, good or bad, victims or perpetrators, for lack of a better word, that, it can help them have something to hold on to, cling to, and trust again.
The one thing that I like to remember with our kids, because we're dealing with kids, and our kids, even though they may have committed a crime, they are victims
Right.
almost 100% of the time.
I believe that.
So he is extremely helpful with that. And we also spent some time at Olentangy Liberty High School basketball game with the judge.
Yeah.
And
Believe
that
me,
was
he
a
needs
lot-
some therapy. That kid over there, he needs a lot of therapy.
That was a lot of fun for us. I know for Franklin, because he was on the half court eating up all the attention. So
He's
All right.
a ham. I see that.
Franklin looks absolutely awesome. Let's take a little break, play a tune, shall we? We'll come back with more with Franklin, Gia, and Judge David Hemanowski from Delaware County Common Pleas and Probate and Juvenile Courthouse. Franklin, the therapy dog. Good morning, Franklin. I keep talking to Franklin, and he never responds.
He's looking at you. Yeah.
Did he?
Yeah, if you don't have food, he's not.
It's like, dude, where's the stuff, man? All right, so Franklin's a new therapy dog. Judge David Hemanowski is with us, and so is Gia Di Girolamo. No, I missed it that time.
Di Girolamo.
Di Girolamo. I got it.
You're getting closer.
Getting
though.
close.
It's on her shirt.
I know it's on her
You can
shirt.
see the.
I know, it's still just hard
What's
for me to
amazing
say
is
it.
that you're not getting that right, but you're getting Hemanowski. How does that work?
Well, we've met you before, so I had to practice.
Practiced it quite a few times. So you wanted to hear what's going on with Franklin. Franklin's been with you guys for how long now?
Since the 2nd of January.
The 2nd of January. We've been speaking about some of his duties in the court. And Judge, you were saying that to some extent, he could even appear in the courtroom in your division.
Yeah, in the probate juvenile court, juveniles who are standing trial generally do not have the right to a jury trial. Very limited number of cases where they do. So because there's not a jury and you don't worry about the effect of having the dog in the courtroom with the witness on a jury, you don't have that concern. We could feasibly have him sit with a witness, sit at the witness stand with the witness during the course of trial, depending on how the attorneys reacted to that possibility. But he's already been Gia can tell you, he's already been very helpful in witness prep in one case, just in the short time he's been with us as a puppy.
Mm-hmm. So we can see him on the stand with a witness if necessary. Pre-trial mediation. Any other particular instances? I guess just anytime anyone's upset about a particular occurrence, or
Yeah, it's limitless, honestly.
Yeah.
But one thing that stood out to me was we did some victim prep, some trial prep with a child victim, and that was through Common Pleas. And they had to walk over and see this very intimidating courtroom. And she kind of shut down there for a second. But when I brought Franklin over and she was able to hold on to him, she was able to answer the questions at that point during the prep. It was prep. So being that he couldn't be there, I gave her a picture of Franklin and she took it up with her, and very good outcome on that trial. So
I guess so. So what kind of training has Franklin undergone, and what's in the future?
Franklin has now gone through 7 weeks actually, of Puppy Star training through
Puppy Star.
through No Bad Dogs Ohio with Alyssa O'Sullivan. She's a behavioralist. We will then go directly into basic obedience. We will then go into Franklin County Sheriff's Office therapy dog training, and we will continue from there as long as the judge will allow us. We will continue to train Franklin.
So do you, can you, or will you take Franklin out into the field on visits and everything that you do? Is that part of it as well?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
If the dogs, or if the people are open to having a dog there, we will definitely. We have no issues with that. We also joined Olentangy Liberty High School, like I said. So we plan on visiting the schools where we can help promote things like reduced teen crashes.
Yeah, so you'll see a lot of Franklin at some of the various community events around.
You will.
All right.
I was talking to somebody a week ago, and they said, "Boy, I'm deathly afraid of dogs. I wouldn't want to." And so it's important to know too. Franklin's not just going to appear in anybody's lap, when they come into court. Before we introduce Franklin in any setting with kids, we would make sure the kids were okay with dogs. We'd make sure their parents were okay with Franklin being used in that setting, and introduce him appropriately. So,
all right.
Obviously, don't want to scare anybody either.
Well, thank you for not going out and getting a therapy mini horse or anything like that. Would have been strange.
That was my boss thought of that. She wanted a mini horse.
Kathy and I, we've been talking about peacocks and therapy peacocks. We think they have a role as well, too. So if you ever need a little partner for Franklin, just keep that there in the back of your mind. Gia, tell us about your role in the probation department, in the juvenile division, and how'd you get going there and why?
Yeah, so I started in law enforcement long ago, 2004. I went through OPATA and that was in Northeast Ohio, came down to Columbus thinking that I would stay into, get into maybe policing here, and just fell in love with the juveniles and the fact that you can follow through a case all the way from start to finish. And we are really working on we're moving away from punishment, and we're really working on building a rapport with these kids so that we can get to their criminogenic needs and start changing their thinking behaviors. And that's something that I really, really, I really liked that. The trauma cases are something that I am interested in. Hence, Franklin was my, the idea behind that, because it's hard when you're a trauma victim to open up to somebody who you don't know, who's in a building that is a courthouse. And so that's where the thoughts come from for me, and always about the kids. I really, truly believe in what we do.
Right. Rehabilitation.
Yes.
And if there's a good chance for rehabilitation, the younger the better then, right? So,
absolutely.
So you're right there at the beginning on the front lines. You can stop it and you can stem the tide right now.
Let's hope so. Well, we're doing our best. We have a great team.
Little bit by little bit, person by person. That's very, very cool. We're on Facebook Live. Hello to our viewers over there, whether you're watching live or on demand a little bit later on. Feel free to leave a comment, a suggestion, any questions. We'll ask Gia, we'll ask the judge about that. We'll ask Franklin whether or not he chooses to respond is apparently up to him.
Getting his belly scratched.
Getting the belly. Judge is taking care of the belly scratching over there? Well, don't let me stop you.
No.
That's very cool. Gage, any comments as of yet? Anything we need to share with folks? You let us know. Gage manning the Facebook Live controls. And Judge, from your perspective, in the courthouse, doing your thing with Franklin over here, I don't know. Is there ever an opportunity to have more? I guess is what I'm saying. Is one always going to be it?
I'm not sure that we would have,
because it seems like a lot.
Yeah, I think Franklin will fill the need that we have there, and we probably won't open our own kennel.
Right.
Maybe we'll get the horse somewhere down the road, or maybe the Liberty Mutual emu, something of that nature.
So what's new with you? I see you're always up to something. I see articles in the newspaper written by you all the time. A lot of the community events you're involved with. What's popping these days with you?
Oh goodness, what's popping these days? We've got we got a fundraiser this weekend for Arena Fair on Saturday at the barn at Stratford, the
that's right.
Historical Society barn. We've got we're restaging 12 Angry Men in April, and we're doing it as a legal education seminar for the State Bar Association. We're going to stage the play in the morning, and then we're going to use the play to talk to lawyers about how to do appropriate witness preparation and jury selection and other trial presentation skills using the play as an example on that. So that's with the State Bar Association the 7th of April.
All right, and you've been involved with Arena Fair for a while, haven't you?
I had. Well, Greg pulled me into it. Greg Patterson, the director there.
He seems like he'd be good at that,
yes,
pulling you into things.
Yes, he is good at that. Yeah, absolutely. And we've got Central Ohio Symphony concert coming up in March, which is going to be terrific. And I think you might even have a radio spot here on WDLR going to be airing for that. So lots going on.
Coming soon here too, as far as the theater goes. It's not anything to do with you, but talked with the folks from Delaware Hayes the other day, and we're going to have the kids that are putting on Chicago.
My daughter is in that show, in fact.
Is she really?
Yes, she is. Yeah.
No. You know what role she's
very
playing?
Very excited about that. She is in the Cell Block Tango scene. She's in,
nice.
so she's But she's having a great time with it, an absolutely great time. In the middle school, if we're talking about Delaware and theater productions, the middle school is doing Seussical. That's
Seussical,
coming
the
up as
musical,
well.
right?
Seussical the musical, yeah, exactly. And my son is in that. So,
All right. You guys are really busy, aren't you?
we try to keep life interesting, I guess.
Judge, what's one thing that you have learned from Franklin, from just watching Franklin over the past couple of months? Because dogs are wise, and if we pay attention to them, we can get little juicy nuggets right here. Have you learned anything about life from Franklin?
I have learned to chill, perhaps a little from Franklin. Franklin is a calm dog for the most part, and that's perfect temperament for what we need him to do.
Mm-hmm. And every once in a while, a good bone to chew on. That's important, too. Keep that in mind.
Thank you.
When you're
I
on
will
the bench
remember
up
that.
there,
Yeah.
you need to stay awake, grab a bone. Notice he's really into that bone. Loves that bone a lot.
He's teething.
His handler, Gia D. Girolamo, is here with us. And I'm just going to, how about Gia D? I like Gia D.
I'm
Gia
okay
D,
with
that sounds pretty. Gia D
You
is
got
here.
it,
And Judge David Hemanowski is with us, too. Why do I got the Hemanowski thing down, but I can't get Gia's name down? Just not right at all. Franklin, thank you for having a good, normal name that I can pronounce. Well done. I got that covered. Pam, getting ready for Mid-Ohio News on the way here just before 9 o'clock.
The Heath Police Department is sharing another scam alert. And last week, Knox County became the 17th Ohio county to pass a resolution to support the Second Amendment. We'll explain coming up at 9 o'clock.
All right. So expenses to taxpayers in Delaware County, courtesy of Franklin, very nominal, correct?
Very nominal. He is owned by the county, so the county pays his vet bills. But because Gia D here, that's what I'm going to start calling her around the office now. And because Gia was so gung-ho about doing this and wanted to raise him and to be his handler, obviously he lives with her and her other dog, which I think is an interesting relationship. Maybe she'll tell us about that.
Yeah, here
as well.
The other dog is what?
He is an 11-year-old pit boxer mix, and he is old. And sometimes Franklin brings the puppy out in him, and that's fun to see. But when Franklin goes home, he is just a puppy. That vest comes off, and they play, and it's just an interesting dynamic that they have.
I bet so. Yeah, the grandpa, dad back there,
Yeah.
the doggy back there at the house, and here's this young one doing its thing.
Yes.
Pretty amusing. Gia, I want to talk to you real quick here, too, about your role in the juvenile probation department. These days, you go out there, you work with kids who've gotten in trouble, and you're working with moms and dads and parents and grandparents on a regular basis. What are you seeing out there these days? Is it different than when I was a little youngster, like, last decade?
Well, so I'm older than I look, I'll say.
Okay.
So things are definitely different in
I'll
my
say that,
opinion. From when even I was young, we are definitely being proactive in probation. We have a lot of partners that we're using in the community to try to get ahead of things. When we see things that, could be criminal, but they're just not there yet, we try to get in there with our assessment center opening up. We're doing a lot of proactive things in this county in order to try to help the family dynamic ahead of time.
I don't want to be like, oh, the poor kids today have it so rough and so tough. But on the other hand, it's a whole different world these days. So, I mean, how do you balance that?
Yeah, well, and just to build real quickly on what Gia said a moment ago, I've said this in a number of other settings, but you think about the medical system. The medical system talks now about getting ahead of problems, about trying to do preventative medicine rather than try to fix some disease or major health problem after it has occurred. And the legal system, both with juveniles and with adults, is really sort of coming around to that same way of thinking, of trying to get ahead of the curve and identify problems early and fix them before they become larger issues. And Gia mentioned the assessment center, which the Delaware City School District has very kindly allowed us to house over at the Willis Educational Center. You said, maybe different than when we were kids. It is and it isn't. The technology has constantly allowed different ways of doing things. Could kids in the 1890s get in trouble by calling each other on the phone? No, they couldn't, and we could when we were growing up. And now kids with cell phones are getting in trouble in different ways than they did when we were kids because we didn't have cell phone technology to be able to do that. So there's always something new, but it's the same kind of behaviors, just focused through new technology that we see with kids. I will say this, over the last 10 to 15 years, juvenile delinquency nationwide is down about 55%. So people talk about, people see stories in the news. There was a story last week about a group of 14 and 15-year-olds running someone down in a car in New York City. You see those kinds of stories, and people think, oh my goodness, what are the kids these days?
Yeah.
And the reality is that kids these days are really no different than kids when we were kids, again, other than the fact that technology changes. Their motivations are largely the same. And statistically, we know that both adult crime and juvenile delinquency are way down in the last 10 years. And we think to a large degree it's because we are doing a better job of getting ahead of those behaviors and getting a better job of doing preventative things so that people don't, I'm going to throw a big word out there, recidivate. That is, that they don't continue to come back and commit offenses over and over and over and over and over again. We can spend a little bit of money trying to intervene with a kid early and prevent that child from coming back 5-10 times later, or we can spend a lot of money housing them in detention later on. And to me, it makes a whole lot more sense to spend a little bit of money at the beginning and not spend a lot of money when they're 17, 18, or worse yet, housing them in the prison system as adults.
Well done. Anything from you, Pam?
Nope, just following along and enjoying the dog.
Sorry, you gave me a soapbox to stand on, right? Was going to stand on.
I totally understand. Other things going on in your neck of the woods, things you're involved with, the Good Deeds program. How's
Good Deeds
that
program, which we're doing with Natalie Fravel, the clerk of courts, and Melissa Jordan, the county recorder, is a program intended to remind folks to make sure that if they own real property and they're married, they have a spouse, or they want to pass that property on by an automatic transfer at death, that there is a way they can do that in Ohio law, but their deeds need to be worded correctly. And Clerk Fravel talks to them about car titles and boat titles, and she keeps talking about jet skis, and I keep telling her I didn't know there were that many jet skis in Delaware County, but apparently there are. So we've been going around doing that. We're trying to get some dates and times set up. I know we've got a program coming up at Hayes High School here in the near future. We've been talking with SourcePoint about doing a Good Deeds program out there as well. So
All right.
There'll be more of those coming, and we'll get word out to folks when we get those scheduled.
Back to Franklin here too. It occurred to me that we've been focusing on Franklin as in his use in the juvenile division and in the courtroom, but also in the probate division. I would think that would make a lot of sense too. You probably have maybe a lot of folks, maybe some older folks who are going through something, trying to figure out what to do with their estate and family problems. That's got to be very stressful, and I bet Franklin can help there.
Franklin, yes, absolutely, and I think we're going to continue to discover ways that we didn't even anticipate where he can be helpful. We had a bit of a tragedy involving an employee issue in the office, and Franklin was incredibly helpful just with our staff that day. He spent the whole day with that group of employees, and it was just helpful to have him there. To have his presence is calming for folks, particularly as calm as you can see he is. We talked earlier about trying to get him to bark. And,
I asked when they first got here, does he know the speak command? Because I wanted to hear him bark, and he doesn't know that one yet.
No, well, and intentionally so, because you don't want him barking and scaring folks in those settings, which is why he is so good at his job, because he is very calm and very laid back.
Another use or another opportunity for Franklin. He can pop on by here on the morning show.
That's right.
Anytime.
You just let us know when you need him to come by, and we'll be happy to do that. He's just not much of an interviewee.
Yeah, I guess not.
Yeah, his answers don't fill much airtime, I suppose.
Because most mornings I could use a little bit of therapy. I sit in a small room with these two over here, so I do a little doggy every once in a while. That'd be all right. You don't happen to drive by here on a daily basis, do you, Gia?
I don't, but we can make a stop as long as we're allowed. His new thing is to sit in chairs, so.
Oh, is he really?
He's a big fan of chairs.
It's interesting because obviously, you law enforcement dogs. You see the dogs that do drug sweeps and that do the sort of bloodhound kind of work, where they're very, very, very different training, obviously, than and very intense training that they go through to do that. And you won't see those dogs as puppies, obviously, because they're going through that training, and you don't see them until they're grown and the training is done and they're being rolled out in that setting. When we were over at Olentangy last week, Officer Latchley from the Powell Police Department was there with his canine unit, and Franklin really wanted to say hi. And we talked about how perhaps the trained police canine units not necessarily always that friendly with puppies, and maybe it was best to keep to keep the two of them separate from one another. But Franklin has actually been doing some training to make sure he's good with other dogs. He actually spent a weekend, was it 2 weeks ago?
Yes.
With another employee at the court and her family. She has two younger kids and a it was an
Bulldog,
English
right?
bulldog, right? Yeah, and a very energetic English bulldog.
Okay.
Who wore him out like you wouldn't believe. He came back and spent the entire day sleeping on Monday after that weekend. So.
And all of his training right now is also in group setting with other puppies, and he is also visiting doggy daycare quite frequently.
Okay. Well, if you guys want to see a great shot of Franklin and you're listening on the radio, you may want to check out our Facebook Live broadcast. It'll be archived on demand there, either at Ohio's Best Classic Hits, WDLR, or on the Mid-Ohio Breakfast Club page. Do we have a good shot of Franklin over there at 12 gauge? Looking pretty good. Also wanted to mention, comment-wise, Richard Upton from Jay Gumbo's Cafe says, give him some king cake. Give Franklin some king cake. Richard was in there the other day, dropped off a little king cake, and I hate to tell you, Richard,
It's
king
all
cake's
gone.
all gone. Yeah. It didn't last a day, but it was indeed a very, very fine idea. Gia D, thanks so much for popping on by with
Thank
Franklin.
you.
I love it. Judge, thank you.
Always a
As always, thinking ahead and doing good work for us. I appreciate
Thank
you
you, sir.
guys being a little bit, I hate to use the word progressive, but I appreciate you being progressive. So we'll get places
Proactive.
with that. Proactive,
There you
even
go.
better. I love it. And Franklin, what's up, my man? He's sleeping. Franklin's taking a little nap.
I'm good with the snacks now.
Franklin's having a great life, if you ask me. A little bit ago, he was at the shelter here at the Humane Society, was it? And now he gets to just sort of roam around, kick back, and be nice and make people happy. How
Yes.
cool is that? Well done, guys. 8:50 with your Mid-Ohio Breakfast Club, another Ohio.